This is a follow-up video to a previous one I did that mentioned UDM equals 14, a trick to make Google less likely to track you. Now, I want to point out that if you're on the internet, virtually every piece of hardware that you go through to communicate over the internet in any way will track you because it's the only way to do the communication. I want to remind everybody that you might see in old movies that tracking a phone number, trace that call, would have delay to it and had all sorts of suspense to it. This is actually a lie told by the Bell Telephone Company to literally everybody, including the CIA and the public, because the instant you made a phone call, it had the ability to be traced. There was never any real delay. The MacGuffin, or whatever you want to call it, in whatever movie term you want to use, saying we have to trace the call and it'll take a couple of minutes or whatever, or a very arbitrary specific number of minutes, was always a lie to prevent abuse by the state. Because the telephone system, if you're not aware of it, has to communicate over the whole planet. And also, legitimately, you could have false data because literally wires, the insulation between them could break, and you could have a connection accidentally end up going automatically or manually through a completely different location and come back through. People like me, it's rumored, would take advantage of this when it switched over to touch-tone noises and trick the system into letting us force it to send us through longer and longer loops all the way around the Earth by going through each exchange system, etc. No, I'm not going to use correct terminology. Go ahead and correct me in the comments section. This only proves that I'm an idiot and I'm lying, right? So therefore I can't go to prison. So anyway, here we go. The UDM equals 14 thing is like this. Google.com/search ? Q for query equals the word test. We're doing a look up the word test. Ampersand UDM equals 14. This is a very short URL. You can put it in. It'll be down below in the description. Cut and paste it. It will not be clickable. At least it shouldn't be. And this is the equivalent to google.com/search ? ZX 15 characters ampersand no _SW _CR equals 1, and then ampersand Q equals test. Remember, it was ? Equals test. The first instance of a variable or flag or switch or a parameter you add to a query to anything like google.com could be a ? But all of them afterwards would have an ampersand. The only thing is the first one apparently has to be a ? But anyway, let's go on. We're now at the point where we're seeing our really long sequence of code here have the word test. And then OQ for original query equals test, ampersand GS _ I think it's IP or LP equals 568 characters of we don't know what it means. And then ampersand IFLSIG 44 characters, a signature of some kind, let's say. Then VED equals 40 characters. Then IE equals 23 characters. And then ampersand SCA _ ESV equals 16 characters. Then sclient, something we can kind of interpret, equals a string of characters that says it went through the lookup wizard, I guess. Then source equals HP. I guess it's guessing the brand of my laptop, but it got it wrong. And ampersand UACT the number 5. Or google.com/search ? Q equals test ampersand UDM equals 14 this long versus it goes off the page. Now, I just spent 4 minutes explaining, you probably suspected, why I use UDM equals 14. Does this shorten the URL so I can cut and paste it down below in the description and actually not exceed the character limit? Yes. Does it eliminate Google being able to tell that that particular query came from me when you cut and paste it in? Yes. It contains no unique identifying data. Unless it's somehow hidden between the pixels or something, it's not. The reason for UDM equals 14 is that's actually telling it don't include any of the other data. The data could be for some reasons. But if you go to Google support forums, help forums, or any other place where someone should just stop wasting our time and tell us what's going on, you will get that they take your question and lock it, mark it as already answered or a non-issue, give somebody who was a fanboy who possibly suggested it their karma points for the day, attaboy, pat him on the head. And this makes Google look like it's hiding something because it fucking is. When closing threads with no answer, giving a silent reply fits with the common style of surveillance, obfuscation, and behavior like Big Brother. So, Google is hiding something until Google gives clear answers. Or links below in the description that are archive.is's of people figuring out what it was partially. So let's discuss this a little bit, but I'm going to bring up the ZX value. It's a long number, about 15 digits long, and it makes each request unique as a 1 in, let's say, 100 billion or 10 billion or whatever users. Okay. Or it's a temporary client-side internal session identifier, like a cookie as a token, to manage at that precise moment how your browser is interacting with Google and being able to tailor-make it. That last one is the explanation I gave, but it still uniquely identifies you per session individually. You know what else does it? Your browser giving up the information about the hardware ID for everything all the way down to your processor potentially. Yeah. Now, why would this be useful? Let's do the nice guy attitude about it. Instead of talking about, seriously, 568 character long GS_IP value or LP value, why? Okay, I'll answer that. And all I did was type in the word test. You ready to hear it? It's because you have cookies turned off, and that's actually the cookie. A cookie is an arbitrary length of data in a text file your browser stores per website to store website status. This is like, some of you already know about this. Oh, I'm going to save my game in a video game. And instead of it storing literally a copy of the entire fucking game, like maybe hundreds of megabytes, it'll store a string of code that says an encoded and encrypted version of where were you in the game, what was in your backpack, what's in your tool belt, how much mana do you got, what's your health points, where are all your buildings, what locks do you have access to, how many keys you got, did you get all three colored potions and keys so you can get through to go after the Keiko demon. Yeah, putting it in gamer terms actually indicates what's going on. It's keeping track of what you're doing so that you can hit in essentially a back button. It can also try to figure out, you're trying to look for something, right? So how about I help you by leading you to what you're looking for? That's the good guy attitude towards it. And that would explain actually 568 characters. That's actually either extremely well compressed or you're just not looking for enough stuff. Now, again, I kill off my cookies. I make it to where tracking is turned off as much as possible, but the stuff still shows up. Not telling us that is to retain your session data. This is corporate speak when they don't talk to you or they shut you up, which is what they're doing on their websites, and technically in search engines, because go ahead and look up my other video to see if you can find it. I don't think you will. This is almost on purpose telling you shouldn't trust them, because you shouldn't. But some of this data is actually done for good reason, because of something simple. They're labeling it. If they didn't want you to know anything about it, it would be a long string, 500 characters long, I've seen before, where it has literally a hash copy of what you typed, everything else, and also backup copies of the content. If you're not aware of it, you can use a hex code or a string of code like this to store pictures. You can receive a picture in an email file, EML files, will contain an embedded picture as a string of alphanumeric characters, base 64. That's what YouTube uses for its URL for the videos. It's upper and lowercase letters and the numbers and a few characters so they can have a 64-bit code in one character. It's 256 codes if they really wanted to push it, but this way it's cut and pastable in a normal text file. Most text editors won't fuck with it. So it can be a unique piece of code that literally equals, this is the picture you looked up through image search. No, really, it is literally the picture. There's a way of reinterpreting it back to where it gives you the picture. Now, it looks weird. Someone figured out how to do it and said it's kind of useless, and I can't find it right now. But basically, if you do an image search, it makes a copy of the image and then makes a compressed version of it that takes up as little space as possible, saying where the lines are, the gray areas, and shade changes and color blotching is. And then it looks for anything with an identical layout pattern, no matter how big or you scale it, and even with a little bit of rotation data. It's not AI. It's trying to make basically kind of a template of the image so it can look for something very similar. And there's another thing called hash coding, where they'll take something like a video game, it'll be in a big zip file, and it'll have a hash code. This is just a number representation of what would happen if you took all the bytes together, added them together, and then gave an end code for some arbitrary length of code. The reason for that is it proves that the file, if you uploaded it 10 years ago and it had this hash code, and you download it, it has the same hash code, it's very likely identical to what it was 10 years ago. This is for checking for integrity. And again, 568 characters is about right for integrity checks. The other reason this is, and this is going to sound stupid, you might have noticed this is in the URL, in the clear internet space where it can be seen and read by your internet service provider and by you. It's overtly doing something. And guess what? It could be a heavily encrypted version of what you've been doing so your internet provider can't see it. Me converting google.com search to the word test, UDM equals 14, is very easy to store by anybody between me and Google. So this gets really foggy. Now, I'm going to explain one good guy reason they may not be explaining it. So that somebody can't phony it up and make it look like you searched for something you didn't. And yeah, that ultimately came out to be a query about it. So here we go. If you make it to where it doesn't do all this stuff in the command line, as I call it, otherwise known as the URL or the address bar, everybody calls it something different, where it's visible to everybody who might be spying on you, man in the middle style, including your internet service provider, which I guarantee you will be doing this. And if you run it through 7 proxies, each of the proxies keeps a copy of this. Okay. Or you give it something obvious like, I'm looking up the word test and I don't want it to make it a long string. That's all you're accomplishing, by the way. That makes it really easy to keep track of. You can keep a file on you. Having to record a kbyte every time you type in any search would make it prohibitively expensive for someone to store your shit except someplace like Google or Facebook or some billionaire. Okay. There are pluses and minuses to this. I still use the UDM equal 14 thing because I need to be able to cut and paste searches and then feed them into a archiver to archive the search results that day. Something 500 characters plus, it's actually several thousand at that point sometimes, isn't useful. So I hit the web button and then I look for and then I put the UDM thing in on that one and then it cleans it up. It does all the stripping for you. I have it set currently that if I go to homepage, I have it set to Google, or I can click a link to go to Google. It's just the normal one that'll do all this garbage that looks like tracking and spying data, which it is in some ways. However, if I just search something from the address bar, like typing in the word test instead of the word www. If I type in not a World Wide Web link, but just the word test, it immediately Googles it and it does UDM equals 14. Not because I'm worried about being tracked. Everything's tracking us at this point. Can't stop it unless you work at it. I'm doing this so that I can cut and paste the address from the screen and not have all this extra garbage just making it hard for me to read it. That's the only value it has. And yes, it does turn off the AI results, which I found to be almost useless. In fact, totally useless most times. This is your follow-up to the previous video. Links below in the description, and thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. We'll all need it.